Hey friends, and welcome to the Mind and Body Strong podcast, a place for women to redefine their relationship with food and their bodies, tune into their inner wisdom, and become the best version of themselves. I'm your host, Katie Pichanowski, a health and mindset coach, intuitive eating and Health at Every Size advocate, nap queen, and bookworm. Join me each week for empowering conversations, stories, and actual steps to help you master your mindset and drop the obsession around food and your body so you can love the skin you're in. I can't wait to guide you towards unlocking your highest potential. And that journey starts right now. Let's jump in. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Mind and Body Strong podcast. I can't believe that we are already coming to the end of 2019. I was doing a little bit of reflection the other day and just feeling really grateful for all of the changes that I was able to make and all of the transformation that I was able to experience in 2019. There was a lot of transition in my life. I ended up towards the end of 2018 and beginning of 2019, moved a total of 3 times in a very short frame of time. And that can obviously be very stressful. And I also started a full-time job. I was previously a boot camp instructor, as many of you might know, but I had decided to go a different path because I knew I needed something that could provide me a little bit of a stability as far as income while I built my true dream, which is being a health and life coach with my brand, Mind and Body Strong, which I really developed this year. So as I was looking back on all the things that I've been able to accomplish this year, I really had to find so much gratitude for the struggles and transition and the things that are obstacles, because without those things, I wouldn't have been able to grow. And I can remember there was a moment in time, and it was when I was in a new business training. I had taken a business training course with my now business coach, and I remember she said something to me that I already knew, and I remember that moment being such a shift for me in 2019. And I think that happened maybe May or June. And from that point on, I realized, oh my gosh, I have so much more control over the things that are happening in my life. And while that could be scary to some of you, I totally understand. It's also super empowering because you realize that you don't have to wait for permission from other people to go out there and do the things that you want to do. You don't have to wait for other people to tell you you're doing a great job. You just go out there and you make things happen yourself. You're no longer waiting for permission. And something about the way that my business coach told me this really sparked something inside of me to step up into this new version of myself, who is a health and life coach who holds that highest version of my clients for them so that they step up into that version themselves, because she was able to do that for me. And that was one of the really big shifts that I had this year as far as business wise. And looking back, this year was just amazing. I have to thank it for so many things, especially in January when I met the love of my life, Chris. He is the most amazing boyfriend I've ever had. And I have to say, I remember thinking and just dreaming about this kind of relationship where you have so much partnership and where we do things together and where we help each other out. And we never let one have too much responsibility or too much, I guess really responsibility is the word that I'm looking for. We always kind of match each other. So if I noticed that Chris is doing a lot lately for our relationship, like maybe he's paying for a lot of things and he's planning a lot of the things and doing a lot of things around the apartment for me, then I start to chip in and do more. It's like this very amazing just flow that we have with each other. And it's just so amazing. So another amazing thing that was brought to me in 2019, amidst all of the craziness that I was going through with still overcoming binge eating, with still overcoming over-exercising, with transitioning businesses, with transitioning homes multiple times. But I think that's the magic of transformation, is that amidst all of these crazy things going on in your life, you make time for the top priorities and the things you really want. And that's what I wanted to start doing on the podcast for the next couple of weeks, since we're coming up on 2020. And I know so many of you are setting goals, are setting resolutions for the new year. I want to give you some very tangible steps to help you and processes to help you really make 2020 your best year yet. I know we always say that going into the new year, and everyone means well in setting their resolutions. They want to do those things, but what makes the difference between those of us who actually accomplish those things, who set out and accomplish those things, and those of us who just find more excuses to not do those things? I'm going to be sharing with you a lot of different steps over the next few weeks to help you get to that next level, to help you level up your mindset, level up your health, your career, your relationships, all of these things. But we need to start from the very foundational beginning. And today's episode, I really want to share with you 5 tips for success when making any change. So I have 5 steps for you. And if you are sitting down somewhere, you're in your house, I highly recommend writing these down for yourself so that you can look at them. If you're driving or running on the treadmill, maybe do this later. You can come back to this episode at a later time and just take mental notes now. But these 5 steps are really going to be helpful in whatever change you're trying to work towards in 2020. And setting up these steps for success are really going to help you make that shift to get there. Okay, I know you're excited, so let's jump right in. Tip number 1 for success in making change is to trust the process. What does that mean? It means that we have to go into any kind of change that we're making and have so much belief that we are able to do this, and to also just release the how. I think that so many of us get caught up in what actions do? I can do all the actions and do all the things, but we oftentimes don't take the time to transform our head and our hearts, which is what I'm super passionate about within my business at Mind and Body Strong, and helping my one-on-one clients and group clients really transform their mind and their heart to match this process that they're and this change that they're going for, this highest version of themselves. And so tip number 1, trust the process, is to just really trust and believe in your ability to be able to make any change that your heart desires possible, and to release into the universe the how, and allow the universe or God or whatever you believe in to carry you through and give you that strength when maybe you feel like you're lacking some, and to remind you of why you're doing this. So number 1, trust the process. Okay. Tip number 2 for success. Adult learning is different. So this one is important because all of us listening to this podcast are in that stage of life, I'm sure, where we have jobs, where you might have kids, where you have multiple responsibilities that you are trying to balance. And adult learning is very different from that of child learning. When we were in high school and all we did all day was learn, it was very different than it is today. Today we have multiple responsibilities. We might work full-time jobs. We might have multiple jobs. We might have families to take care of, spouses to have to go out on dates with, or friends to interact with. Okay? We have multiple responsibilities. And so we normally can't just dedicate an entire day to canceling all of our life and moving towards this goal, right? We have to do it in a way that integrates the change into our life, that is in a way that's easy and fun, where we're not saying no to the things that are important to us, but where we're making time for the most important things, because we don't have time for everything, but we do have time for the most important things. That's a super, super important tip. And I'll say that again because it's really important. We don't have time for everything, but we do have time for the most important things. Write that down. Okay, it's super important. So understanding that adult learning is different, and that we are not in this environment anymore like we were in high school, where we're just learning all day long. And that was basically like our job, is to go to school and learn, and then take tests and go over that information and understand it. Today, now that we're adults, we have to go to maybe a full-time job, and then we have to make that time to spend with our friends and our spouse and our family and our kids. And then we also integrate these changes that we're trying to make, either in our health or our mindset, whatever it might be. and understanding that we need to first set out our priorities to be able to integrate this new change that we want to implement in 2020 into our life in a way that feels easy and fun. Knowing those priorities is really going to be helpful. And I'm going to dedicate a whole episode to helping you kind of clear out the clutter. So you always hear that term, clear out the old to bring in the new. I have dedicated a whole episode to that. So if that's something you need help with prioritizing and finding the time, really go to that episode. That's going to be a really good one for you. Okay, that was tip number 2. Adult learning is different. Tip number 3 is one of my favorite tips. Start sniffing out unrealistic expectations. This is one I see in my clients and myself all the time. We are holding these unrealistic expectations of perfectionism, and we feel overwhelmed. We feel stuck, right? We feel stressed, worried that we're not doing this right, that we're behind already, even though we might, we're really not behind. And I'm going to walk you through some of these different unrealistic expectations and something to help you replace those with something that's more realistic and is going to set your mindset up for success, so that you can accomplish all these things in 2020. We're going to walk through those things, okay? So these are some ways that unrealistic expectations might show up in your life. I mentioned perfectionism. So there's so many of us out there who don't want to do any kind of new goal unless we can do it perfectly from the start. So we might plan and write down all the things that we want to do, but we never take action on them because we feel like we have to do it perfectly or we don't do it at all, which really sets you back from unlocking your highest potential, because really it doesn't have to be perfect. And the idea of perfect is also subjective. It's different for every person. So what if we, instead of living by this perfectionism, waiting for everything to be perfect or the stars to align for us to finally have the life that we dream of, what if instead we replace that with presence? So replace perfection with presence. Show up. Do your best. Things that we've heard since we were kids. Done is better than perfect. That's something my business coach always reminds us in our mastermind group. And that's something that I want you to really lean on as you start to shift and make all these amazing changes in your life. Replace perfection with presence. Just show up. Be your best. Forget the rest. Another unrealistic expectation that shows up a lot. Overwhelm. How many of you have ever felt like you just need to figure out every aspect of your new career and your life and your relationship in the next 5 years right now? Like, you need to have a roadmap of everything. Okay, I need to do this now, and 1 year from now, this is where I'm going to be. And you have to have everything planned out. Otherwise, it's just going to all fail. You need to have all the details of everything in your life for the next 5 years, right? Or you're a failure. I know that I've for sure thought this way before. And this mindset and unrealistic expectation can really hold you back from a lot of your potential. Staying in this state of overwhelm is a choice. It's a choice that we can choose to choose differently, okay? So a more realistic expectation that I'd love for you to shift to is that anyone can learn anything as long as it's learned in small chunks. You do not have to learn everything right now in order to grow the business that you want, in order to have the relationship that you want, to advance in your career in the way you want to have your health where you want it. You do not have to have every single thing planned out to a T for the next 5 years or even for the next year. You just have to understand that when you chunk it down into smaller goals to reach that bigger goal, that's where you can really reach success, okay? And celebrating those small wins. That is super, super important, okay? Another thing you might be feeling is that you're stuck. Like, I'm stuck. I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to get ahead or have the perfect career, the perfect relationship. Whatever you might be thinking, I'm never going to lose weight. I'm never going to have an amazing relationship with food and my body. I know some of you have felt that way. Feeling stuck just means that there is something else you need to know, feel, or understand. What if we thought about it in that way? That feeling stuck is almost like a compass. And it's like, oh, I feel stuck. That just means that there's something else I need to know, feel, or understand in order to move forward. So what if we just trade I don't know to I wonder? It really opens up your mind to start to think in a new way. I always like to use this analogy that our brains are like Google search engines. Whenever you ask your brain a question, like inside your head, it automatically tries to find you an answer, whatever that answer is. So if you're asking crappy questions or saying crappy things to yourself, like, ugh, I don't know. Anytime you say, I don't know, you're just pigeonholing yourself and putting yourself in a dead end. It's a dead end thing to say because you're just victimizing yourself and saying, well, I don't know, so I'm going to sit here and do nothing. But what if instead you shifted to say, I wonder what I could do to start today? Or I wonder what I could shift about my schedule that would help me make this a priority. I wonder. Such an amazing thing that you can shift towards. And it's just a quick shift of language in our minds that will really help to stem all these amazing new thoughts. Because remember, our brains are always going to give us the result that we're asking for. So if we just shift, I don't know, to I wonder, we can help ourselves overcome this feeling of stuck. Okay. Awesome. So another one I hear so many times is I'm behind, even though I used to think this for myself, even though I'm 25 years old, I need to have the perfect relationship, the perfect career. I need to be making all this money. I need to have all of my life figured out right now. This is where we shift back to step number 2 in success, is that adult learning is different. And that learning when you're a kid is not the same. When you're learning as an adult, it takes small little steps. We do not have to have everything figured out. We've talked about this in the last few unrealistic expectations. Those small steps that you're doing every day, consistently, over time, are going to make the biggest change in your life. This is a paradigm I use in my health coaching business, is that the smallest changes can give you and produce these big results in your life. And we need to acknowledge all these amazing little wins along the way, because those little wins are what are going to compound and just equal this amazing success that you want. And you're going to look back in that moment and just think, I'm so thankful that I did all of these little things. Okay, so you're never behind. You can always pick it up. Remember that. You're never, never, never behind, because you can always pick it back up. Okay? One more unrealistic expectation before I shift to your number 4 step in success. This unrealistic expectation states that you're not doing X right. So you might live by this kind of expectation where you're not doing something right, or you have to know exactly how to get your health in order. You need to know exactly how to stop binge eating and start getting on the exercise train if that's what you want. You need to know exactly how to do it, because clearly you're not doing it right. And if you feel like you're not doing it right, chances are you're just going to not do anything. And then you're going to be disappointed in yourself, and you're not going to meet those goals that you've set out for yourself. And I don't want that for you, okay? So remember, trust in the process and your ability to figure things out. You can always figure it out. Everything is figure outable. Okay, that's a word. I'm claiming it a word. You can always figure it out. Okay, when you're feeling that way that you're not going to do anything right, think of all of the ways that you have had success so far. The littlest things, just you being aware that you're binge eating at night and asking yourself that question. I wonder why I'm choosing to eat this whole bag of chips right now. That's interesting. That's a term I use in my mind a lot. That's interesting. I wonder what I could be resisting right now or restricting. That's a big thing I use in my practice to help me work through different mindsets. Just wondering and with curiosity and just being curious without judgment. Okay, so now that we've really dove into step number 3, which remember is starting to sniff out those unrealistic expectations. Number 4 tip for success is to embrace community. You guys, when you're making a big shift in your health, in your career, in your relationship, whatever it is, you cannot do this all on your own. It's so important to be able to have people around you who have already made those shifts or who are going through the same shifts as you to help keep you accountable, to help you when you feel like on those days when it's just too hard, or when you're having a hard time finding all the positive things that have been happening, all those little things that we want to just skip over because we want the big thing. Having a community of people to go to that are working on the same kind of goals as you or who have already been there, like having a coach or someone, is so imperative in helping you change. So whether it be a friend or a spouse, or maybe you find a Facebook group that you can be a part of, or a local community of people who are doing the same thing. Whatever it is for you, whatever makes sense and feels good and aligned for you, find a community of people where you can feel comfortable reaching out for help, because you will receive support and people who understand your situation, where you've been, where you're going, and be able to help you overcome all these unrealistic expectations and help you stay the path. Okay, so embrace community. And tip number 5, our last tip for success, is that small hinges swing big doors. I love this one because it goes back to when I was talking about how all of the little things that you do in order to make big changes in your life matter. The littlest changes can spark the biggest transformations. And I've seen it happen in so many of my health clients. In my life, I've seen it happen. I've been a health coach now for almost going on 4 years. And I've seen this happen in so many of my clients where they make that small little shift, that small little thing that they might have done for very consistently for a long time. All of a sudden, they had this big shift in their life, and it's just incredible. And it's because of all of those little small things and celebrating all of those wins along the way that big transformation happened. Okay, so let's review 5 tips for success in making any change in your life. Tip number 1, trust the process. Tip number 2, adult learning is different. Tip number 3, start sniffing out unrealistic expectations. And tip number 4, embrace community. Last one, tip number 5, small hinges swing big doors. So as you go into 2020 and you're starting to write down your New Year's resolutions, you're starting to plan your way to making these big changes in your life, I want you to keep these 5 tips for success at the forefront, and remember all of these things are going to help you make any kind of change in your life. All right, you guys, thanks for listening in today. Stay tuned for the next couple weeks because we're going to be continuing to break down more actionable steps and tools and frameworks to help you make 2020 the best year ever. See you next week. Thank you so much for listening into the Mind and Body Strong podcast. You are what makes this movement and message possible. Before you go, could you do me a favor and leave me a review on iTunes? This is how the podcast can be discovered by more people and impact even more lives. And don't forget to tag me in your Instagram stories at Katie Pijanowski so I can see what you're listening into. I love you all so much, and I'll catch you again on next week's episode.